And we're back, and it's COMP305, and it's winter 2016, and it's week 9, part 3 of our broadcast, where last we left off in our journey on this 3D game that we're making for that's going to take us a few weeks. We were kind of using Unity to make a terrain, right? So we're going to stop that. We're going to get back to it another time, because we're going to do some more work with trees and different things, fog effects and so on. But for now, I just wanted to give you that so that you can use that as an alternate or part of your current level. So let's open up Unity. And I don't know why I took a page out of your book, but I updated to 5.34. I don't know why. So it is what it is, right? But you know, it's the latest version that's coming out. And it wasn't that I wanted to, it was just that it just something that happened. I'm going to bring up this game that we're working on. It's the version of the demo that we're working on. This is what we did last day. We had, this is like kind of level 2, or if you want to talk about scene 2 that we built. Here's scene 2. I'm going to make another one. I want to make another one, scene 3, right, today. So that way we can make something with this. I'm going to add additional stuff into this one. So let me just, what I'm going to do for this one though, for now, I'm going to do a couple things. I'm going to transfer some more assets in from another project that I have. So I'm going to close this off. Just give me 1 second while I do this. So here's, I'm closing Unity. And I've got this previous project that I worked on, which was this one, FPS demo, where I have quite a few assets that I'm going to add in. So just give me 1 second while I add this in. There's a lot of assets here, and I hope that GitHub will be able to share some of this with you. I'm going to give you the ones that you really need, not every single one, only because there's just too much. There's too much, right? And then, you know, you guys are going to be inundated. You won't be able to use it all anyway. So let's go into this one. I'll see if I can just drag and drop and see what we can do. So we have standard assets. I call them standard. I'll put them under standard assets, and we'll grab FPS effects. Copy FPS effects. It's there. Paste. And what else we got here? We got dungeon level kit. Not going to do it right now. It's too much inside there. Terrain assets. Bush, grass, and texture and stuff we'll do another day. But what I want to really grab from here is some other stuff. Maybe some models in our models folder. Characters. Do I have models? I don't. That's good. And I also have some texture. So I'll grab some models and texture. So I'll grab models, copy models. And I'll grab some textures that I have. Lots of textures. We'll grab some more textures. Quick round old, eh? Yeah, I'll grab all these textures too. Oops. And then what I'll do is I will go into Unity first, just to convert them. A lot of times I find when we bring textures in, again, there's different ways of bringing it in. You can bring textures in through the operating system, like I'm doing right now, and you can bring textures in by drag and dropping them, or importing them. Use the import way of doing them. So you see, it's opening all the textures now, and what it's doing is it's trying to import all the textures that I had from that stuff I used already into here. So we'll see if this works. I think I may have grabbed most of it. I think actually there might be some stuff I'm missing, but maybe some materials. But that's okay, because I can always drag those in as well if I need to. You can see how long it's going to take. So this means that the project is going to bloat a little bit. I'm going to give it a little bit more. So what happens when you have a big project and I have a lot of textures and a lot of other things, but I don't have, you know, I'm not using it all. Can I do that? And the answer is yeah, you can. When I build my project, let's just actually close down the scene. Let me take a look at my models here. So models material, oh good. So it has materials built in too. Okay, this is good. So if I bring in my AK rifle, see if I do that. Bring it into the scene. Focus on there's a rifle, right? So there's the rifle. Okay. No, I'm going to do that now. Just give me a second. I'm working on it. All right, so that's good. So now I'm going to save everything here. So file, save scene, file, save project, close my Unity off. And all I've done again is I've just formulated this stuff. So part of this one, you're going to go, Tom, you just wasted my time. I apologize, I really do. But let's grab this thing off. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload the rest of this back up to GitHub. So let's just do git add dot. It's a lot. And if it takes that long for me to add things in, that means there's lots, like megs of information. So it's going to take a bit of time for me to upload it. Oh, that's big. Git commit -m. I'll say added FPS assets. Okay. Okay, that's pretty good. Now I'll get push origin master. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So it's going to be big. It's going to be like 350, maybe, I don't know, 500 megs. Yeah, I mean, you know what? I know it sounds like it's crazy, but what happens with GitHub sometimes, and this is the great thing with GitHub, which I love, is we can share some assets. Again, this is just for learning purposes, right? So it's done. You guys can go online and grab it now. Now, try that at home. That's going to take like twice the time to do it. Do it from here if you're going to do it from anywhere, right? Anyways, let's get back into this thing and pull up the project the way it is now. So I'm going to go back into here and pull up Unity and go into that same project that I was working on. Now, luckily, you don't have to re-import things when you just go back and do it the first time. All right, so let's start off a new scene. So this is one thing we can start doing. This can take a little bit longer to do this one. I may have to stretch this out over a couple of days, today, maybe next day, which will be next week. Let's make a new scene. So we'll say a new scene, and we're going to call this scene scene 3. What I'm going to do for this scene is I'm going to pull in some assets to make it a little different. First of all, I'm going to double click on the scene, right, to start the scene off. Notice that there's a main camera. Let's get rid of it. So no main camera. Because again, I'm going to add in my assets from the previous scenes, right? So I'm going to kind of get some stuff. One thing I want from a prefabs, I have my maze tile. Let's bring my maze tile into the scene for this one. So here's my maze tile. I have one little maze tile. I'm going to bring it in a couple times. So let's say 3 or 4 times like I did before. Notice that it's going in the same spot. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's my little maze tile that I'm going to do. Right? So I'm going to make this a little bigger than before, just to give you an example of all the stuff you can do with your scene. So here's my scene. What I want to do is I want to move this out to different spaces. Notice that my rotation is minus, or whatever, 180. Let's move it so it's normal. And I'm going to move this out. So I'm going to kind of move it out into different patterns. Now this one's going to go, it's about 16 by 16, so I know where it's going to be. That one's going to be there. The next one, I'm going to move out in this direction. So it's going to be 16 on this one. And the next one, I'm going to kind of move out in both directions. So I'm going to kind of move it this way and over here. Right? So it's going to be about 16 here and 16 here. All right, so let's take a look at the scene, the way it looks right now. Again, this is just reusing the tiles we already had, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Some of this is okay. This is kind of repetitive to have it this way, so I'm just going to rearrange this tile by spinning it in another direction. So minus, let's say minus 90, right? And that's pretty good. That's good enough to make it unique. Okay, cool. Let's do it again. Let's take these 4 scene maze tiles and make a mega tile, right? So I want to make a new, create a new empty object. There it is. And my new empty object, I'm going to rename this mega tile. My mega tile, I'm going to take these 4 scene tiles and put them underneath my mega tile. Here we go, 1 mega tile, right? Let's make that mega tile again, right? So what am I going to do with this one? I'm going to take this whole mega tile and pull it into my prefab, right? And now I'm going to duplicate this mega tile by pressing Control or Command D a couple times. And then we're going to pull this mega tile out. So zoom out a little bit, and we'll do the first one. So this one here, we're going to pull this out over here. Now these are a little bigger, so if you notice, they're approximately 64 tiles or 32 tiles, in this direction. So still 16, but this one 32. All right, so let's do the next one. Again, I'm looking at the mega tile. It's mega tile 1, mega tile 2. We're going to pull this one out over here like this. So approximately, like again, 48, what it looks like, right? So there's 48 across that way. And just to make it really, really big, right? And we'll pull the last mega tile out over there, which is going to be around, again, 48 by 32. It's pretty easy to figure that out, right? Okay, now let's spin it around so it doesn't look too much the same. Like this one here, mega tile 2, and this looks like this one, so we'll spin it around, let's say 90, and that's not cool, right? So I kind of spun it out of control. Why? Because the center is where it was, right? So it's fine, don't worry about it. It's going to piece it together nicely. So, and if you notice where it's going to be 32 by 16, 16, so we don't have any overlap. There we go. And that one looks like it's kind of the same as well, this big one here, mega tile number 3. So we're going to rotate that, let's say minus 180, and we'll move that out into the space. It's going to be over here too. Well, it kind of looks like this one, right? So maybe we'll make this minus 90. Let's see how that one looks. No, it's same. How about 90? Yeah, okay, that's good enough. That's good. Again, you know what? It doesn't have to be perfect, guys. I mean, like I'm just reusing the same exact tile over and over again, right? So, there's nothing that's special here. Okay, cool. So now I've got my tiles, and now I've got some so kind of a big enough scene. If you were to look at this from where it's at, right? It's a pretty big scene. Like it's enough. That we can confuse ourselves and not know what the hell's going on, right? I need a spawn point. So normally what I would do is I would create a spawn point with my game controller, right? I want to make a game controller that creates a spawn point for me and spawns my player, right, in place. One thing that I may want to do is, kind of populate my characters in one corner of the screen somewhere or someplace, like maybe over here where there's a big open space, right, like at the edge, right? So let's make my character. I'm going to go into standard assets here and grab my characters. Under that, I'm going to get my first-person controller character under prefabs. Here it is, and just pull them in. I want to move them. I want to go first use frame select mode to make sure I'm way over here. And notice that he's like, I want to put it at 0, 0, 0, where he should be. And then go frame select mode, so it's over here. So it's not bad. So it's almost where it should be. Just going to pull it over here a little bit. That's okay. That's actually a pretty good spot. And we'll pull him up. So he's out of the ground. There we go. Okay, so that's where he's going to start. And let's just rename him. So this is going to be our player. I'm doing this over and over again, as you notice, right? Might be a good idea for us to pull him into our prefabs eventually. I haven't done it for a reason, because my player this is the first time I'm going to make it with a different camera, right? So here's my player camera. Player camera, like we had before. Everything the same. Let's pull them in. Let's play the game. So if I did everything correctly, it's going to do its little dance, and then hello, right? So it's a sea of tiles, right? It's it's not going to be easy just for me to go from one end to the other without, too long. Now notice I'm still able to get there pretty quickly. I also notice it's kind of dark, right? Would you say it's kind of dark? So might be a good opportunity for us to change some of the way the background works. The background is a skybox, but one thing to note is that the background that I've created here in this new scene. So if I go back to my scenes, here's my scene number 3. The background that I've created here is pretty blank. So if I was look at the game, it looks like this. And if I want to, I can add more light, right? So now I have some lights in the scene, right? One of them is a directional light, right? This is my directional light. What about if I wanted to add in, instead of just a regular directional light, I wanted to add some more lights? What lights would I add into the scene? What would you recommend? I want to just have some ambient lighting for the scene. Nothing too crazy. Okay, so you don't know. Let's add in some lights. So again, if I was going to add in some lights, again, how would I do it? So I'm going to go into, if I go to Assets, Create, and again, if I want to, I can add in anything that's in here this way, right? So Assets, Create. I can also go into Game Object and look at Light, right? And I can point to a point light or a spotlight or an area light, right? Let's try area light, right? So area light, put this over here like this, and then pull it over, right? Let's go to lighting for a second and make sure we do an auto lighting. Okay, there we go, some auto lighting. All right, so light that puppy up, right? Now, here's the difference. Notice what I did here. I have a lighting inspector that I pulled over. So I had the way you can get your lighting inspector if you go to Window and if you go to Lighting. And all I've done is I've pulled over Lighting next to the inspector in another tab. So you can organize as many tabs as you want. This is my layout, right? That I've kind of I have for this particular one. Now, if I don't want to, right? Like this is just as an example. This is it's not auto layout. It wasn't auto lighting like I had it off. But here's how a lighting looks now. That's pretty good. In fact, there's some areas with that area light. It's pretty bright. Okay. That's pretty bright now. Okay. So I got some bright lights and stuff like that too, right? I think we're pretty good. I want to give my player a gun, right? Now, this is not because I'm a violent guy, okay? Just letting you know. I don't do that kind of stuff. I'm not a gun person. In fact, I believe in gun control, right? A lot. But for the games, this is what it is. In order for me to make a gun, the gun is going to be a part of the character. It's going to be married to the character, in fact, right? It's going to be parented to the character. And it's got to be done in a particular order, right? Right now, let's take a look at what my player camera looks at. My player camera, if I look at the inspector on the right-hand side, right? Notice that the clear flags are skybox, right? Clear flag skybox. And then the culling mask is everything. Also, notice that the clipping planes, I have some clipping planes here. For people that remember, if you're part of my Advanced Graphics 2D class, COMP305, then you'll remember what near and far planes are, right? My clipping planes are 0.3 units to 1,000 units, right? It's pretty far. If I cut this down to 100 units, to give you an idea, not 10 units, 100 units, and if I play the game, let's take a look at that. It's my regular camera with cut to 100 units. They kind of come up, and then I have 100 units I can see. Why is this a good thing? Well, it's good because it doesn't draw anything beyond 100 units, right? Even if it's on the screen, it won't draw it. Right? Why it's bad is because sometimes it'll sneak up on you. Right? It's like you didn't see it, and then all of a sudden, ooh, it's there, right? So 1,000, let's leave it as is. 1,000 is what the original thing was for our player camera. That's what it was. We want to add in another item, and I have some models that I've added in here. One of them is this AK rifle, right? AK rifle. What I want to do is I want to bring this AK rifle into the scene. Okay, let's do that. So let's get my AK rifle, and we'll bring it, and I'm going to kind of make it as a child of my player camera for a second. Okay, so it's going to be inside my player camera. Okay, now let's take a look at what that looks like. I'm going to kind of zoom in on that rifle. There it is, right? And I brought it in as part of my player camera. And, you know, I'm noticing there's some issues with it. My shader, here's my shader. It doesn't have any kind of texturing whatsoever. That might happen as well. But even if you had the same kind of idea, right? AK rifle, right? And if I look at AK rifle, if I go into AK rifle, or under models, there's materials. I've got AK rifle material, right? That's what it is. And if I take my AK rifle material and drop it onto my AK rifle, right? Like one of those. And if you see it, it's not really working, right? How do I take my AK rifle material? There's my material. Where's my textures for my AK rifle? Do I have an AK texture? I do, right? So what I can do is I can take my AK texture and put it into my albedo. I have a nice little rifle. Okay, cool. What does this look like right now if I play the game, right? So, where the hell is it, right? Well, of course it's not in the scene because I'm not looking at it, right? Because look at where it is. It's like kind of weird, right? So let's take a look at that, what it looks like from a game perspective. Nothing, right? Here's where I want to change my perspectives a little bit, right? What I want to do is I want to pull down my scene and my game so that they're under each other like this for now. Different kind of perspective we're going to use, all right? So here's my rifle, and what I want to do is I want to move it so we can see it in the scene, right? So is it here? Like what's my scene looking at? Where, oh, so this is what's looking like it right now. In fact, over here on this side. So my camera is facing this way, over here on that side. That's where my camera's facing. Well, that's what the wall is looking like, right? Let's undo that change. So undo, undo. All I need to do is spin this rifle, right? So here's my position on my camera. Let's move this position. Let's zero this position out. My AK rifle, I'm just going to go into reset. There it is. And what I want to do is I want to rotate my rifle, right? I want to click the rotation, and I want to rotate it in one direction. So I'm going to kind of go into my rifle itself. There's my rifle. And across the green plane, what's the green plane? Right? So if you look at my Y, if I hover over the Y itself and I hover over, well, that's not it. Wait, hold on. Oh, that's not the way. I want to go this way. So I want to go positive, let's say 90, right, along that plane. So there it is. So I can see part of it. Huh? Well, I see it there. That's where it is, right? But that's what's going on, right? I know. So what about if I move it down? So move it down. Okay, there it is in front of me. Is that good? How about over here? It's a little better, right? So that's where I want to kind of put it. But it's being cut off, eh? Don't understand. But what's going on? Why am I not seeing my my rifle properly? I got my camera, my player camera, and I'm not seeing my rifle. You know, my rifle's off to the side, being cut off. And I have another problem too. If I play it, right? Let's say I had this rifle here, whatever, right? Take a look what's happening here in real life. This is what's happening on, look at the top, right? Okay, I just notice it, right? So I'm now walking through and then, yeah, man, look at it, it's going to the wall. Hello, that's not right. Especially here like this, see, that's like right into the wall, right? That's messed up. It's messed up, right? You shouldn't allow that to happen. There's ways we can stop that from happening. So right now, if I parented it like this, right, the problem is that I'm seeing everything. My camera right now is looking at the entire scene, and it's rendering everything in its field of view, right? What I have to do is create a second camera, right? Now remember, when I create a second camera, I'm going to make it part of the player camera. So the player camera itself is going to have a second camera. And the second camera is going to be parented to the first camera. And the rifle itself is going to be a sub-item of the second camera, not the first camera. So let's look at the first camera. Let's look at player camera. Right-click and add a new camera, right? So camera. And this time, we're going to call this something different. We're going to call this gun camera. So here's our gun camera. We're going to take our AK rifle and put it underneath our gun camera like this. That's the order. So player, player camera, gun camera, AK rifle. All right, now there's little differences that we're going to make, right? So the gun camera, we're going to put this into a new layer, right? Right now, notice that our layer, let me take it back. Our culling mask, look at our culling mask. See these layers? Culling mask means what it sees. Right now, the camera, this camera, the second camera, gun camera, looks at everything. I want to see nothing. So if I click nothing, then my camera sees nothing. Instead of my clear flags, this is for my gun camera only. Instead of my clear flags being skybox, I want to go depth only. So depth only. See, it's black, right? Depth only. And from my clipping plane perspective, let's take this right down to 0.1. And then from my maximum, let's go to 10. So we don't want to kind of render anything beyond 10. It's going to be a very little efficient camera that I'm making. Okay, cool. One thing I don't need for my camera, my gun camera, is a second audio listener. I told you you can't have a second audio listener in the scene. So let's remove that. So remove component. So only one audio listener. Okay, cool. So we've got our gun camera, but it can't see anything. All right. And let's do something else. Let's, in my AK rifle, here's my AK rifle. Let us, in the AK rifle, let's change it so that there's a new layer. I'm going to add a new layer. And we're going to call this the gun layer. Gun. Right? All right. So we got a gun layer. Let's go click away and click back. And let's assign this layer. So I'm going to say take layer from default and make it layer gun. Okay, cool. Gun. My gun camera right now sees nothing. But I want it to see my gun. See how it appears now on the scene. Right? My player camera sees everything. But I don't want it to see the gun. Okay. Gun camera. AK rifle. Player camera. Let's see what it looks like now. No gun, right? My gun is in the scene, but my player camera not seeing the gun, right? I'm just saying, it's kind of weird, right? The gun is floating around. All right, but hold on. My gun camera, it sees the gun, and it sees depth only, right? So how come my gun camera, well, is not being seen, right? Well, we can make this part of the gun layer too, right? This is a gun layer. No, this object only, right? So there's a gun layer, right? Notice that this thing calls the gun. So this doesn't show the gun layer at all, right? My camera, my other camera, this one here, shows the gun. Now here's the problem. Take a look at the depth. So this player camera depth, 0. This player camera depth, 0. Remember what we learned in 2D? We need to change the depth to something else. So remember, let's make this camera depth, I don't know, 1. Yeah, I know, I'm getting fancy. Let's take a look and see what it looks like now. We're moving, and then do we go into the wall? No, sir. We don't go into the wall because it's not part of the wall. It's not part of that camera. So you'll never go into the wall. That's the one thing that looks like. And it'll look like it's pointing at the right direction. Now, we need to make some more work. This is not enough for us. And I'll explain why in a second. We need to take a different perspective. So this is neat, but not enough for us to make do with what we're doing. Okay, so gun, cool. Let's bring that gun out a little bit more. So I'm going to kind of bring that, draw that gun out. Oops. Not the gun camera, the gun. Let's bring that, draw that gun out a little bit more, like I said. We want to draw the gun out so we can almost see the gun. Look at, whoa, too far, right? Let's kind of do it like this so we can see the gun. And what I want to do is not quite see the, we don't want to see the handle of the gun. So we don't want to see this part, but I don't want to see the trigger. So if I see the trigger, it means I probably should see a finger, right? No finger, no trigger, right? That's kind of one thing. So we're going to want to see the trigger. The trigger's going to be hidden, right? So that's pretty good. The angle's kind of right. I don't mind the angle because all I've done is I moved it from the middle to the right. So it's pointing to the middle of the screen here. right? The next thing I want to kind of do is, and this is something that we need to do, right, is with the gun itself, when I've got the gun, right, here's the gun, I want to be able to take the gun itself, right, and I want to be able to animate it. So when I click the left mouse button, right, it's going to do something like this, bam, right? It's going to do one of those, right? I need some gun flare. I need some kind of thing that it hits on the other end. I even need a target in the middle, a reticule, right? These are all things we need to build over the next couple days. This is not something that I can do in one class. There's just too much work involved, right? Other things I need to do. Here's a problem, all right? So I'm playing the game. Hold on, I've moved my gun now. I look down. Depending on the angle I'm at, let me just go over here. Oh, wait, that's kind of weird. But I'm at the edge. Depending on the angle I'm at, I may or may not see a shadow, right? Should I see a shadow of my gun ever? Chances are no. I don't think I want to see. Look at the top screen up there. I see a bit of a shadow, and I can't quite see it, which is good. But there might be a case, like I don't know, when I kind of jump. So if I run and jump, I'm on this thing, and let's say, for example, if I'm closer to a light source or something, I might see a shadow, you know, depending on where I'm facing. Now, luckily, I'm not seeing that right now. So I want to get rid of the shadow. So the way to do that is, of course, go back to the gun, the AK rifle itself, and notice how the AK rifle receives shadows, but I don't want to cast any shadows. So see where it says cast shadows? I want to turn that off. So I don't want shadows casting from my gun. I want to receive shadows on my gun, but I don't want to cast shadows from my gun because my gun is just sitting there in space, right? And you might just see it just a gun by itself with no body, right? So it's just kind of looking weird. Right? That's why I take it away. So no shadows, okay? I know these are little micro changes. You're like, holy crap, look at all those little changes you got to make. I'm never going to remember that. Look, guys, don't worry about it. You get the video, right? I'm going to save my scene now. So I'm going to save my scene, right? So that's the scene I'm working with right now. Lots of stuff going on with my player and everything else, my directional light. I'm getting better with what I need to do. Now I brought in some additional models here, right? So I've got some ammo that I can pick up. I've got some pistols, pistol shells, rifle shells, all kinds of other stuff, sights, and everything else, right? I got other materials, you know, that I've kind of brought in for us. That's what I've kind of given you so far. I got some textures that I gave you guys as well so far for this one, right? Like for example, in our models, I also have an M16. So if you like an M16 instead of this one, you can always pull that in. So if I was going to pull out an M16, just go there to that one, pull that out. There's my, if you like the M16 more, that's a different model of a gun. There you go. You can use that one instead, right? I don't recommend it, you know, only because you should try to follow what I'm doing. I need something else now. I need a reticule, and I want the reticule to be part of the gun. It's going to be in its own canvas, right? And I want it so that the reticule is in my scene all the time. Now, one thing before we move on from this is right now we're seeing this as display 1, right? Just display 1. If I want to see this as, and right now it's free aspect, right? So that's good. But I want to maximize on play for a second. So I want to play, maximize on play, and see what I actually see. That's pretty good, right? I don't see my, this is maximized screen, right? So I don't see my anything else. I do see shadows on the gun. See how the light probes work nicely on the gun itself, right? So if I go over here, and as I go into lighter and darker areas, it looks pretty realistic, right, when I'm walking through. Now, if I run, that looks kind of weird, right? And this wall is kind of wonky. Look at that, how warped it is. Anyways, but as you can see, I'm still good enough to stay on the gun, and then if I click the left mouse button, I want it to fire. That's one thing I wanted to do. We're kind of good. The only thing I want to add in is this reticule. How do we do that? Anyone remember how to do that? Some people who did the tutorial, actually I got tutorials online how to do all this stuff already. But how do I add a reticule? What is a reticule? A reticule is a little dot that appears everywhere. But again, I don't want it to go behind anything else. It's almost got to be a UI effect that this thing happens, right? And it's going to be separate from my UI, separate from my score and everything else. It can have nothing to do with my score. It's a little dot that appears in space. Okay, cool. So let's just escape from this. Go back to this setting. And I'm not going to maximize on play again. So because I know this is working now. But I want to get that reticule in place. I'm going to drag this back into my regular way of doing things. Okay, so there I am. Go back to here. The reticule is going to appear here in the scene. So I'm going to go back to my player, and I'm going to add in a little UI object. And now it's going to be part of the gun camera. It's going to be part of the gun camera. So let's be careful where we add it in. So right click. Remember, you can add stuff anywhere you want, right? I can add stuff anywhere I want, depending on where I click. So do I want it to be part of the player camera? Does it want to be visible to everywhere? Or do I want it to layer it on top of the gun camera? If I do, it only gets seen by the gun camera. It has nothing to do with the regular scene. And I can add additional canvases on top of each other, right? Now remember, I have two cameras. And this is the funny part. People don't understand why two cameras, right? And why am I using two cameras anyway? One camera takes the environment. The other camera is all about the gun, right? And that way I have that clean aspect that you saw, right? It doesn't go into the walls or nothing like that. That's what stops it from happening, okay? Let's add that other UI element. So I'm going to go to UI, and I'm going to add in an image. Let's take a look at this image here. Okay. Now notice that my image, if I click image, it's going to appear right here, right? So it's not even though I clicked where I clicked, right? And here's the color, right? Here's my width and my height, and I can't see a darn thing. Well, remember where it is. The image is going to be way over here, right? Because that's what it is. It's a canvas element, right? If I look at the game, it's just right there. Ah, that doesn't make any sense. So two things I need to do. I'm going to go with my image itself. I'm going to go to canvas center and put it to the center, right? So here's my center. That's the first thing I need to do. And I want to put this at the center, so 0, 0. That's the canvas center, exactly in the middle. Okay? That kind of tells you exactly where the image is. Now, the image is too big, right? So let's go like, I don't know, 10 by 10. See what happens. 10, it's pretty small. 10. Okay, 10 by 10 image sitting right there. And let's make the color, instead of white, let's make it yellow. So it's going to kind of choose a yellowish color and move to the right there. It's actually 255, right? And I made it 10 by 10. You can make it smaller if you want. But if I run now, if I go kind of move around, just even that, like you see, like there's a bit of a, it looks like a place to hit, right? It's not real. It's just a, just a little place that we think that where the middle of the image is, like right there. Make sense? If that's too big for you, you can always go like 5 by 5. You can try something smaller. I find that when you go too small, it's hard to see, right? So if you look at that, that's sometimes we'll use that, something like that, right? Where it's kind of a little thing. You can see the dot. It's in the middle of your screen, or it's red or some other color, but it's not so big. And if 5 by 5 is no good, you can try other sizes as well, right? To make it a little bit bigger than what it is. I don't know. For me, I like it what I had before, which is kind of 10 by 10. That's a kind of a bigger dot. Yeah, 10 by 10. So you know what you're hitting. 10 by 10. Boom. Right. Now, what if I took this canvas, just saying, took the whole canvas and put it underneath my gun camera? Does anything happen to it? No. Like this gun canvas is only for this image. This image is an image, but it's nothing. It's just there's no sprite source. All it is a it's a material that's just part of my gun camera. Now the layer is UI, right? Layer is UI. The layer is not gun. Okay. If the layer was gun, that's okay, right? Because my gun camera, right? My gun camera itself, that's what it sees. It just sees my gun and the gun layer, right? There's the gun. But notice, even if I changed it, look, here's my image, gun. Here's my canvas. gun, no, right? And if I was to go and see what it looks like, it's still there, right? If I look at if I go back to my gun camera, I see this. Here's something different that you didn't see. Do you see the gun reticule here in the scene? How about here? You don't see it here either. There's not an example of a preview of it right here. You have to really look here in the actual view, the preview, to see what it looks like. So this is kind of part of the gun thing. If I turned it off, like for example, I said, well, you know what, the gun camera doesn't see it, or if it's some kind of other layer, then I could hide it or show it, whatever I want. All right, cool. Let's try and play that and see how it looks when I wander around, if it's too big, right, or if it's kind of in the wrong place. Kind of gives us a place to aim, right? Kind of know that this is the place, hey, where to go? It was there for a second, now it should be gone, right? How come? It's in the sky, it's floating around. Whoa! How come it's doing that? Hey, I'm just trying to be smart like you guys. Whoa, hey, whoa, it's not working. Here's the problem. When it comes to this kind of stuff, and it's a nice idea that we have to put the canvas underneath the image, we can certainly do this, and I'm going to put it back to UI for a second. And the same thing with my image as a UI image. Now let's try it out and see what happens again, right? So, ooh, down here, up here, all the way around, back and sideways. That doesn't seem to be the issue. Why do you think it's the issue? That's like me moving things around, right? If I go back to the canvas itself, so if I click on the canvas and go to my scene and zoom out, and see this little dot in the middle of the scene, which is what it should be, right? Here's my image. If I look at it, it's in the middle, 0, 0, 0. What's going on? Because of where it is. My gun camera is part of my player camera, right? But really, what it really should be is exactly what I had it as, like this. Now, it's exactly the same, right? Except when it comes to moving around, it stays in one place. I'm just showing you, just in case you choose to. What if I did this, Tom? Here's how you do it, right? Now when I walk around, I have a target for where I'm going, right? And where I'm going to be eventually shooting. People are already dying over there. Dying over here. How can we die? Yeah? Cool. That's one thing. I got some other assets that I want to bring in. Assets are cool, man. Assets can give you, like, you know, all kinds of stuff. So I've got my FPS effects, right, that I pulled in. I've got this other thing. I got some particle systems, right? So I got some explosions. There's an explosion, right? So let's bring that in. See what that looks like. And I'm going to kind of you know, select it, and let's move that crazy explosion in front of our camera. Look, it even has a light that's built into it. Whoa! Let's play it for the first time. Right? See that big explosion? Second, I have some other particle. The one I gave you, the stuff I gave you, includes an explosion, right? A particle system, right? Okay, that's cool. I like the explosion. That's neat. But there's no sound, right? I want, when the explosion gets instantiated, I want us to have some sounds, right? Because that's just not cool, man. To have like sound without, explosion without sounds. So there's some explosion sounds, as an example. And, I have my frag, what the hell? Something didn't convert properly. I can tell you right now. So normally I'd be able to play it right here, but I can tell that this frag explosion element didn't convert properly at all, right? So let's use a bomb explosion. So it'll sound like something like this. Right? Same thing, bomb explosion, frag explosion. So this bomb explode is what we're going to use to connect to our explosion. So there's our explosion, right? And we're going to take our bomb explosion and we're going to connect it to there, right? So we're going to kind of just add that in as an element, right? So when I do that, you notice that down here, as soon as it plays on a wake. So the bomb, as soon as I show my explosion, it makes the sound like this. Whenever you see an explosion, you see it makes noise, right? Nice and easy. Okay, this is great. I got an explosion, and I like to keep it as a prefab because I think that's something that I'm going to use and I'm going to instantiate. And I don't want it to be the explosion from my standard assets. I want it to be part of my prefab. So I'm going to kind of grab this explosion and put it in there. Now I got my explosion prefab. I can always call that up, right? I don't need this anymore. So explosion's there. Okay, let's go back to over here into my FPS effects. I got some other stuff too, right? Particle systems. I've got impacts. That's something neat. Impacts, for example, are the particle effects that can happen when you shoot a gun at a piece of wood, right? It makes a different noise than when you shoot a gun at plastic or glass or something else, right? So let's pull out something like brick bullet impact and see what that sounds like, right? So bullet impact, pull it in, and then what happened? Where'd it go? I didn't even see it. It's gone. It was there and it was gone. It cheated me. Right, hold on. Let's pull it into the scene so you can see it. Hold on. What? There's no sound. There's no sound, nothing. I don't understand. Well, there's no sound in the, remember, each particle effect doesn't necessarily have a sound, right? It's just the particle effect. Particle effect, I want you to think about this as a bunch of little planes, right? And what they do is we give physics to them and so on to create almost like particles that create things like smoke and explosions and things like bullet impact. So if I look, let's see if I can see that one now. And it's too quick. But you can hear it. I mean, I'm sure I can do the same thing with my bullet impact, right? If I kind of escape out of here. And so I've got my impact, my brick bullet impact. I like that one. But I need a sound for it. I'm just going to pull out some of this again, just as I did last time. Oops. So I want to go to sounds. Here's my impact sounds. Notice that I got my bunch of impact sounds. So concrete, right? And if I want to test them out, I can see what they sound like, right? That sounds pretty good, right? And there's different ones. Look. Why would there be 3 different sounds for the bullets? How about the guys who play, your first-person shooter, CS:GO stuff on the corner over there, Justin? Why would they have 3 different sounds for my impacts? Different one? Different guns, different ammo, but it could also be just variation, right? Like it sounds too boring if it's exactly the same impact. Like, every time I hit something, it sounds like exactly the same, right? So what I can do is I can add one of these clips as a default clip, and I can add the other clips in as well, right? Because there's my sound clips. I can add them in, and what I can do is I can use a randomizer, right, to randomize which one plays. So I play one when I shoot one time, and then the next time I shoot, like something else, right? Sounds a little different, right? I get other ones too, like for example, a metal bullet, a metal one, right? So I hit a piece of metal, right? And I can see that it sounds differently all the time, right? Depending on what I hit, bang, 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 right? So it sounds more interesting. And they get a bunch of these things that they've created so that the part of the illusion of us firing a bullet is what's happening here, right? So I like the concrete one because that's the one. There's also dirt, glass. What's this hit indicator? And foliage, right? So if I hit like some kind of tree or bush, right? And there's also wood if I want to hit a tree or something like that. So I hit the tree, right? A little bit different. Water, right? So going to the water, right? So depending on where I hit, that's called impact sound, right? But I want my impact, and again, I can use all of these. Hey, how can I play different sounds depending on what I hit? What would I do? Huh? Collider, right? So my collider would go through and say, if my impact is instantiated, that's what happens. My impact is instantiated on a brick, right? because that's my brick impact. Then play this sound or whatever it's going to be. Okay, so that's what happens. Or play one of these sounds, random sound, one of these three, right, in the loop. Okay, I want to, for now, let's make it a standard sound for my impact, my brick bullet impact. It's going to be my concrete impact bullet 1. I'm just going to pull that in so we can have some kind of sound in there. There we go. And this is going to play on awake, and so is my bullet sound. My bullet sound is also going to play on awake. It's not going to loop, right? It's going to play once. Let's see what happens when I kind of bring this into the scene now. So play, and you can hear that it kind of comes into the scene, right? So I can't see it. Let's not maximize on play so we can see that happening in real time. We won't maximize on play this time. And now what we'll do is we'll bring it cross-sectioning in. So move this back over. And I'll pull this to the top this time around, right? So let's pull it to the bottom. And we'll kind of put our scene in perspective here. So I'll kind of go into the bullet impact so you can see the bullet impact here like this in my scene. And if I want to pause, I can pause and stop. Take a look what it says here. Particle effects you can kind of test out, simulate, and over again until you can see them. Right now you can't see this one too much, right? But that's only because, you know, sorry. Oh, simulate. It's very short. It's very short impact. Can't see it very often, very clearly. Right there it is. And also depending on where it is in the scene, right? So let's see if what I see when I see the impact. See it? And where is it? Look, where's my impact? It's not there anymore, right? So I'm back in my scene. If I want to bring that bullet impact back, notice how it disappeared on its own, right? Because the bullet impact, what happens is when you bring the bullet impact in, it's what I want to do is I want to instantiate my bullet impact. I want to enable it, and when it's done, I want to disable it. I don't want to bring it back in all the time. There's some tricks that people use, and what they do is they bring in all their bullet impacts all at once. They put it part of the player camera, can't see them, and they're disabled. And then when you fire a bullet, you move them to where they're supposed to be, depending on the ray that I'm going to cast, right? And then enable it wherever that position is. Bullet impact. Okay, so that's the way it's going to work. Let's stop the game so we can see that. So I get some. I'm just assigning some of my stuff. So this is my. We'll just call this my AK rifle. You know, or bullet impact. I won't call it brick bullet impact. We'll just call it bullet impact, just for now. Okay, there we go. Bullet impact. We're going to make this a prefab that we're going to be able to instantiate a bunch of times to make it simple. Again, you can make this as complex or as simple as you want. For now, I'm just making it simple because we have a lot of stuff going on. All right, we got a bullet impact now, and I can delete this one. So I've got everything I need. I got my sound in there, and I got my bullet impact, and I can always pull them in, not like before. Okay, cool. Now, what else before we stop for a break? Sometimes what I want to have is a muzzle flash, right? So this is what looks like a muzzle flash. It kind of has a flash in the middle of the gun. So when you fire the bullet, it goes like a smoke, right? Right, smoke, muzzle flash, fire gun, right? And I want to be able to make that go off too, right? So I'll go back to particle systems, and there's different things. There's weapon effects, right, under particle systems. Weapon effects, I have something called a muzzle flash, right? There's a muzzle flash generic, right? And there's a muzzle flash star. I like the star. That's pretty cool. So I'm going to pull that in. All right, let's play that, simulate that over and over again. Now it's a bit of smoke. That's all it is. You can see a little bit of, I'll pull it in. See a little bit of smoke happening, right? That's all it's going to do. So if I kind of play this thing off, right? All it's going to do when it plays, it's there and it's gone. It's there and it's gone. It's really short. Right? You can't see it. But that's how fast it's got to be. It's like as soon as I fire my bullet, it's there and it's gone. Right? Let's test the other ones out to see if they're better. So I'm going to test out the muzzle flash generic. Right? And again, we can see if we can simulate that. It's very hard to see because of our perspective. I'll bring it back into the middle of the camera here so you can see it. So there it's gone, there it's gone. You can't see what's going on there. And here's our muzzle flash V. And so bring it into perspective, go into the middle, and Okay, pause, play, pause. Let's see if I can see that thing before I, right? But that's okay because I know it's going to work, right? So muzzle flash is pretty cool. We also have something on the third person muzzle flash, right? So we have a scatter and a muzzle flash cross, and bring those in too. So see if that works a little differently than a third person. And the reason why it works a little different is because, oh, see that? How that works on the side there? That tells you the direction that this thing is working, right? It's not something that I want, definitely not. So that's not what I'm going to use. But I can see that if I test these ones out, there, see that smoke right there? That's what that one's going to look like. It's going to be a bit of smoke in the middle there. That's good that it finally showed up. Don't want that one. And this is my muzzle flash generic. Take a look at this. So it's a little bit going on there. So that's too not interesting. But here's my muzzle flash star, which is what I really want. It's the one I want. Bit of muzzle flash. See where it's happening? It's actually you can see it in the scene now. Hold on a second. See if I can position it in front of the. I want to position this thing in front of the camera or the gun, so you can see it where it's supposed to be. All right. So otherwise, you won't see this thing on this camera at all. So I'm going to bring it over here, and it's got to be positioned correctly too, because that would be just really weird. In fact, let's just look at it from the top for a second and kind of zoom in on it. Let's see. Because otherwise, what's going to happen is, see where it is right now, right? Let's go from here. Wherever that square is. All right, and let's simulate it again, right? Kind of low, so let's look at it from the side. Right? It's important we get the muzzle flash in the right place, right? Let's try it out. Now, do you think you want to rotate it? Where would you rotate it? Okay, so let's look at it from the top again. So you want to rotate it this way. So y-axis. So instead of 90, we're going to go back, what, to 0? Let's try again. So, make sense? Now, I can still kind of see the X, and it's got to be, the X is kind of going to be right in front of me, right? So that's kind of the weird part, right? I want to kind of look at that from a different angle. So that's another thing we can look at from the side here. I want to zoom into that position, right? So I want to kind of right zoom into that. And this kind of gives us an idea of where the barrel of the gun is going to be and where the muzzle flash is going to appear, right? So we have to be able to see it. Sometimes the problem is, see, even if we're this close, and if I simulate where it's coming out, I want it to the right a little bit. So look down here what you're seeing, right? Okay. I want it just slightly to the right and a little up. So I want to move it to the right. So go back to this, move it to the right. And let's see how that looks now. A little bit up. So that position, right, that little position, see? And now kind of forward a little bit more, right? See. Let me see that again. Let's try that simulation one more time. Everything. The muzzle flash is there and gone. I like the muzzle flash, and I think that what I'm just going to call it, I'm just going to rename this thing as muzzle flash. Again, you have all these assets, guys. I just put them up on GitHub for you, right? So you can totally use them the way you like, right? So what I need here, in order for me and my muzzle flash to appear, what I need 100% is a spawn point, right? So-called flash point. So whenever I click the button, my muzzle flash will come on, and it's got to make a sound too. It's got to make that, bullet sound, right? So let's just go for my muzzle flash, and I'm going to put that back into my prefabs by drag and drop it. So I got my muzzle flash. One thing that I missed, that I forgot to do with my muzzle flash, from a sounds perspective, if I go to FPS sounds, is I need some firing. Right now I got an MP5. It's not exactly the right sound, but it's okay. Right, so that'll be the sound of the gun. Right, so that's okay. AK doesn't sound like that at all. It's more of a da-da-da-da-da-da-da, different things, right? But that's okay. If I want to, I can get an AK sound, but there's no point, right? For me, for what I want to do, it's going to be very simple. So I'm going to take this sound that I've got, and I'm going to drag and drop it onto my muzzle flash. Right, so my muzzle flash now has a audio source. It's only going to play on awake. As soon as the muzzle flash appears, it's going to appear, right? And what I need to do with this one is, and this is where some of you had challenges on your exam, right, is you need to apply back to the prefab, right? Here's something to note about the audio source. Take a look at the audio source, how it's all bold. Everything's bold here, yeah? Because I haven't applied it back to the prefab. I added my audio source, but it hasn't been applied. If I kind of go up to the top and click apply, and then I go back down, notice how it's not bold anymore, right? Bolded items, right, are the ones that are gonna appear, the ones that you have to add in or apply back to the prefab. Okay, so now I can get rid of this thing. I got my muzzle flash. So I got a muzzle flash, I got my reticule, I've got my impact, right? And there's two different sounds I'm going to make. I'm going to make one. I got my explosion too, right? I got my explosion. How about some targets? I need some targets, right? So, and again, FPS effects, right? They come loaded with a bunch of different things. Go to prefabs. I got a barrel. Huh? I got a barrel. And I got different kinds of barrels, right? So let's bring up this barrel, and I'm going to put it onto my scene. And let's go frame select mode to see it. There he is, my barrel. It's kind of a cylinder that's got a bit of a coating around it. It's kind of flat, or the wrong way. So let's just reset this thing. So reset. So it's back to 0, 0, 0. And let's go frame select mode to find where it is. It's way down there. And I'm going to kind of bring it way up here. There's my barrel. I can see it in my scene now. There's a couple of problems with this barrel the way I have it. It's too small, right? So if I go frame select mode to where this thing is, and if I rotate it across the x-axis 90 degrees, right, to make it stand up, it's a little small, right? So I probably have to make it twice as big. So twice, not that big. It's a massive barrel. There it is, massive barrel. And notice how this axis is inverted. Some of the axis is inverted. So I've moved it around, I've modified it a little bit. But it's all black, it's a black barrel, right? Do I have some kind of texture for this thing? Notice the barrel 1 has something called an explosion location. So if I kind of look at where that is, right, barrel 1, it's my explosion location. It actually, one thing that you can do is you can put the explosion right where it has. It's already preset up for this thing. Right? I can put my explosion location almost like it's an empty object. It's preset. So whatever my explosion location is, I can assign my explosion to my explosion location, so it kind of envelops the barrel. That's pretty cool. But I'm still not quite satisfied with what I've got here. I've got weapons, I got utilities, I got materials, I got particle systems, all kinds of other stuff. But I need some textures, and I believe one of them is some kind of barrel texture. And if I don't have it here, no barrel texture here, there's probably some textures somewhere else. So if we got scenes, my barrel shooting game, right? By the way, there's a full game here if you wanted to check this out as well. Here's my different props. I wonder if this prop actually has a better view for it. Let me drag this one out. Just an empty barrel. So let's not undo. Let's kill that barrel. So barrel 1 is the one, but what I'm looking for is textures for this kind of stuff, and a lot of times they have this little package has a bunch of stuff. Oh, here's some other stuff. Take a look at what others it has. It has bouncy ice, maximum friction metal, different kinds of physics materials, right? That are built in. And I got some prefabs, like barrel 1 and barrel 2, like I showed you. There's some particle systems that we have, some materials, and I think there's even some decals, right? Concrete, dirt, asphalt, blood. Blood is neat. It's like they got splatter. They got splatter for the blood, so you can, add that onto the brick. Different kinds of brick that you can add in there. For different physics material for the brick. There's brick, physics material, sand, and so on. And this is really cool because if you look at brick, it gives you dynamic friction, static friction, bounciness, different things that you can add in there. And you can just drag and drop this brick onto the wall or something else. Like let's say, for example, in my mega tiles, I want to kind of change this. I go to my maze tile, and inside there I have walls, right? And I want all my walls to have this brick kind of component to it, right? So what I can do is if I want to add this in, this brick component here is a physics material, right? So if I look at my materials, right, here's my material, and I want to add this in. How do I do it? Can I do this? Right? Yeah, I can, right? And what this does is it adds into my walls this brick material, right? It's kind of neat. And I can do the same thing for my rooftop because it's kind of bricky, right? And I can also do this to my floor, right? Which changes the way my things work. I'm going to apply everything. So apply my rooftop, apply my floor back to everything else, right? There we go. Here's my mesh collider. Look how my material in my mesh collider is now brick, physics material. So I've got that. And if I play my game, I'll leave that thing for a second, it'll fall. But if I play my game, I've got a different kind of bounciness than I did before. My game responds slightly differently when it comes to different things, different friction and so on. I got some null pointer references. What's going on here? It says null pointer reference barrel. It says object reference. It's pulling up some code here, right? And one day when this pulls up, we'll see what happens. We should probably take a break, eh? Let's go back to Unity for a second. It says that the object reference not set to an instance of an object, right? Okay. Here's my barrel. And notice that I have a rigid body for my barrel, and I have this explode script. Oh, man. What the hell? My barrel is set to explode already? Yeah. These things are loaded with fun. All right, so let's just... If I look at my, it's going to explode somewhere. Where? It's going to explode in my explosion location. It already has a health, right? This thing, my little barrel. Like I said, it's full of fun already, right? One thing that it's missing that I'm not happy with, right? I've got a shader, my barrel shader, right? And it's kind of a black barrel, but I want to change the color. Here's my main color. I can change the color to whatever I want, right? So if I go back to my scene, notice that the barrel looks kind of red now. Kind of a reddish barrel, a little bit different looking. Still got the same kind of thing going on, but it's missing some stuff. It's complaining. The reason why it's complaining, if I go back to this, see if MonoDevelop is actually going to open up here for this thing. The reason why it's complaining is because it's looking for a couple things. It's looking for explosion small, right, somewhere. So instead of a big explosion like I picked, it's looking for a small explosion. And if I was to find that, if I go to explosions, that's the sounds. But if I go to prefabs, particle systems, explosions, there's explosion small, right? Explosion small. And this explosion small has a fireball, some smoke, and different things, right? So that's what it's looking for here when it's looking for this thing. But it's looking for other things too that's probably not part of this thing. So, and also notice how the script is turned off, right? The explode script is not even on, right? If I click this thing on, right? Let's just undo this thing for a second. Notice my explode script is on. If I click it on, my explode script goes off, right? And the reason for that is because of my null reference error that I've got going on. My null reference error, right? Yeah, it's not going to fire up. My application is not responding. Let's take a look at my explode script. See what that looks like. All right, so here's a script that's built in, right? It says, on awake, exploded is false. My game object, go temp. Game object, find object with tag, game controller. And this is the problem. Do I have a game controller? No. Therefore, I can't use this script. Otherwise, it'll mess up, right? I like it, but I don't need to use it. So I'm going to get rid of this scripts thing. Just remove it. Now we won't have a null reference error here, right? Or we shouldn't anyway. Here's my explosion, my barrel. Got rid of my script. I don't want to necessarily apply this change. What I'm going to do is going to change this thing from barrel 1 to barrel, right? And I'm going to pull this into my own prefabs. So set it up like this, go back to prefabs, and drag my barrel back in there. Then I'll get rid of my barrel, delete it from the scene. If I play the scene, it should clear this up for a second. Yeah, it does. And go back. And if I take my barrel and put it back into the scene, there it is. And if I press play, it's going to fall. Okay, so we're pretty good there. Barrel's back in the scene, and there's no issues. It's right there, and there's no problems. But there's no script either. Okay, so that's pretty cool. So I have a barrel. I've got stuff to shoot. I've got my gun. Now I just got to press the button. When I press the button, right? How do I get my button in? I got to make a player input, right? So let's take a short break. When we come back, I'll start pressing the button to make noise. All right, let's take a break.